Our Motorsports Country Club panel. And I'm really looking forward to this because there are three of just fantastic facilities. And I think we're going to learn a lot from our panelists as well. What happens if you love the country club lifestyle, but you're not exactly in love with the sport of golf? Well, if you're like our next guest, you start a country club racetrack instead. And the Audubon Country Club in Joliet, Illinois is about to start its 15th season, and it's bigger and better than ever. Let's welcome Mark Basso.
Thank you. Push it up.
Just up.
There we go. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having us. Yeah, I grew up. I was always into cars and loved that environment. My parents belonged to a golf country club, and I would go there and race my Trans Am up the entryway and get asked to leave politely or not so politely several times. But then after college, I started enjoying the sport, traveling around, and my family's like, we're not going to some track in the middle of nowhere with no amenities. And so really is just thought, how hard could it be? Just get a bunch of land and you get some bulldozers and you pave a track and everybody comes out and you build a clubhouse. So, well, it was a lot harder than that, but anyway.
All right, let's give him a round of applause, please. All right, who would think you could take a hunk of real estate that used to be a car manufacturing plant and turn it into car, guy, and lady heaven? Well, our next guest was just crazy enough to try it and make it a huge success. He's a lawyer and an entrepreneur by his background, but certainly a guy who colors way outside of the lines. From the M1 Concourse, let's welcome Brad Oleszynski.
Thank you very much. So, I'm not a traditional background in this industry. I come from racing. I don't even race myself. I own a racetrack, but never really been on it. It's more of a business, but
tell them that.
In our business, which is a little different, each of our businesses is slightly different. Similar in concept, but we have a racetrack. We don't do races. We were a real estate business selling garages who's evolved into an event business, and we're doing events for corporate clients and garage owners and the general public. So I view my facility more as a marketing platform and entertainment facility, more like Disneyland than like a racing facility. We do plenty of racing type activities. We just don't do any car against car racing or timed events. So we'll talk more about that, I'm sure. Thank you.
A big round of applause. All right, in the hills of northern Georgia used to echo with the sound of moonshine runners trying to get away from them police. Now they echo with the sound of race cars turning right and left around the scenic landscape of Atlanta Motorsports Park. But the big question I have for our next guest, you close enough to hear the siren when it goes off when Chase Elliott wins?
Yeah,
it's Jeremy Porter.
Yes, thank you for letting me be up here. And yes, I can hear the siren, and I'm just lucky enough to sit between these two guys. But really, I'm here because I have 5 kids, and I just needed a nap. No, I'm being serious.
Our first question for the panel, and I'm going to direct this. I guess I'm going to throw this one at you, Mark. Public or private model, or do you need both to have a successful country club track?
In our case, they both feed off each other, and that's what's kind of neat. I mean, we learned early on when I was trying to launch this idea, just talking to people, talking to different track owners, and I can't remember the guy's name. It was a track owner in Canada. And he said, whatever you do, build 2 circuits, because then you'll have a dedicated one for members and one for rental. So that was the number one key feature of our business plan, was to have 2 circuits that can run simultaneously. So therefore, it made it more difficult to find a piece of property big enough and close enough to Chicago, because we drew a circle and said, it can't be more than 45 miles from the city, or it's going to be an issue for people to show up. But because of that, and we did find the location in Joliet, 350 acres, and that public side offsets the members' costs. It adds a lot of excitement, because even with 440 members, on a an average weekday, there's only 20-some members that show up over the course of a day. An average weekend, if we're not member racing, it's maybe 40, 50 guys. So on a humongous facility like that, that's not a lot of people. But when NASA's there racing on that same weekend and the members are on their own track, it adds excitement. It brings in a lot of revenue and also generates future member sales by people saying, oh, look at those guys in that clubhouse over there. How come I can't go in there? What about those member racing? They can show up anytime they want. So the spectator, it's really not a spectator facility, but all this other activities from track rental to manufacturer events to corporate events, and now go-karting, as we learned a lot from Jeremy, is the next phase of our development.
Brad, your facility, you've done a great job of getting the public excited. And I think you're getting people to love cars again in your area, some of the cool events that you've had. Talk a little bit about how you've handled that as far as, being able to be there and sort of getting that next generation that can afford you maybe 15 years down the road of being a member at a track. How do you get that person excited?
So when I developed the concept, nobody would give me money. You couldn't finance these projects. I bought a former General Motors factory out of bankruptcy, 87 acres of what was supposedly contaminated site or soil, which turned out it wasn't, luckily. But I knew I had to sell garages as the principal business model in order to finance the project. So I was fortunate to sell over $15 million of garages before we broke ground. That's what made this project happen. So I convinced 80 individuals to make a very large contractual commitment and large deposits to fund 3/4 of the development of the project. And as I was doing that, people said to me, oh, this is all for rich guys. It's all about rich guys, and you're in the middle of Motor City, and you got nothing for the average Joe. And when I looked at the stats and knew that there were over 100,000 people with classic exotic muscle cars, people's second, third, or 10th car, and I would hang out with these people on this famed road, Woodward Avenue, where my property is now located. And the main activity before I developed M1 was go get an ice cream, drive down the road and get ice cream, drive around Woodward for an hour and then go home. But I was kind of sick of hearing people say, this is all just for the rich guys. So when I developed the model, I was focused on how do I create access for the average Joe, and how do I do things that are free, how do I do things they can pay, how do I do things where they can enjoy a wide variety of activities, not just motorsports, because I knew that having a marketing background that I couldn't focus only on the racing guys for sure, because that audience is tiny. I couldn't focus only on the car enthusiasts because that's a very disparate audience of people that like certain classic cars and modern cars and sports cars and whatever. So I tried to develop a business model that works with every aspect of the enthusiast market, as well as now we are all trying to do things that are not even motorsports related. I try and come up with, we're looking at drone racing. We're looking at, we try and test and learn a million different ideas. Concerts at racetracks is a huge thing. We've got festivals. We do drag racing, which is not, we closed down the public road outside our facility and do drag races. We try to find any way to bring the general public in. Our Cars and Coffee, for example, we figured out quickly it's expensive to put on an event when you get 5,000 people to show up and 1,000 cars on average on a Saturday morning. So we get sponsors to pay for it and keep it a free event still. So we get a massive audience, but I get car dealers and Pep Boys and Champion, all these brands to underrate it. And an average Joe can come. It doesn't matter if you got a $1,000 car or $1 million car, so they can enjoy it. So I've always been focused on how do you meet end to end of the audience, of the enthusiast market, and not just be only about the guy who can afford a membership or a garage for $500,000.
Jeremy, your facility is unbelievable, the regular road course, but now you're getting to be known for your karting track. How is that model, using the karting world to sort of, introduce new people to this idea of going fast and turning right and left?
Well, it's interesting because I think without a kart track, you cannot be successful in this industry. I really feel that it brings people in that don't know anything about the industry, that really wouldn't come and do something that's as intimidating as cars. And then when the industry is in a downturn from an economic issue in America, that's where all the car people go. But when it turns, all the car people move up to nicer cars, and the car people move up to cars, and there's more net new car people in the karting side of the business, forgive me. So it is something that's very interesting. It's very stable. It's an annuity stream. It's 40% margin. It is just remarkable business, and it's a heck of a lot of fun and interesting. And there's so many bolt-on businesses related to that. The go-kart sales, the go-kart servicing, the go-kart storage. We have 44 go-kart garages. We just finished building 5 new buildings, and we have opened those August 13, and we only have 5 of those left. So it really becomes a real estate play like Brad's, but it's more of the rental side of the business as well. And then we have corporate events there. We have team building events there. We run a race school there. We run leagues there. We run public karting that does, in good weeks, $55,000 a week at a 40% margin. It's just quite a robust business, quite interesting.
Mark, you talked about how having a NASA event at your track gets those folks looking at the garages and going, how can I have a place out here? Well, I used to work with Fall Line Motorsports quite a bit. Great folks. And they are doing a good job because the owner was a novice who became a pretty darn good professional that got to kiss the bricks a few years ago here at Indy. How is that model and evolution of membership working for you in the opposite direction, turning some of your novice racers into real racers?
Yeah, the evolution is really critical because when we first opened, there was the low-hanging fruit. The guys in the Porsche Club, the track rats, the BMW, our membership is very inexpensive just to get. We need people in the door and get the real estate and everything going. So we had that low-hanging fruit that jumped in and joined. But since then, there's a lot of people that, go out and buy a Ferrari or a Porsche or a Mustang or a Corvette. They've never been on track before. They don't even know they want to get on track before. So what we do is take a very cautious approach to try to get these people out to the club. We do touring events or just open track events, and then we try to get them back for an open house where they get a little taste of everything, but we keep everything very controlled as to not intimidate someone. Tom Bagley, one of our instructors, Tom was an IndyCar driver in the 80s. He was great. He rides with these guys and takes his time with them, and then they get comfortable. And then once they get a little instruction, all of a sudden it's like, wow, then I want to get to the next level. But once we can turn someone into a member, and then just because they're a member, now we're in this for 15 years. There's a lot of guys that cycle through. They come out, they do it for 3 or 4 years, and if they don't progress or don't get more involved in the club, they're gone. That was a cool thing I did. But obviously, we want that dues revenue. We want these people moving up and getting them into buildings and real estate, and then they're in the property for good. And then their kids are going to start coming in, which leads back to the karting and all that. So the racing is critical. But we take our time, try to get people comfortable. If we can get them into the Spec Miata series, is our biggest series. We have 90-some members that have Spec Miatas. Our average field is 25 cars for a Miata race, and sometimes it's up to over in the mid-30s. And that's every year. That's over 14 races, so it's big. And if you win that championship, it's the real deal. But then we have a chase race series, a GT, a Radical Cup series. We have endurance racing. So we really try to progress, the novice, get them out to the facility, give them a good, safe experience in their street car, hopefully then get them involved. And the biggest thing we've seen this year was selling social memberships. We started a couple of years ago because our full membership is $40,000 to join. So you walk in, $40,000, dues are $5,200 a year. And that's the cheap part. Let's face it, if you're going to race or drive on a track, if you can't afford that, that's a problem. So, and it's a lot.
Entire budget.
Yeah, it's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask of somebody who's not sure they really want to do it, or do they have the time? Everybody, I don't know how much time I have, even though they have the money. So the social membership gives them access to the kart track, to our fleet of performance cars for lunchtime touring. It gives them a taste. We give them a 30-day taste of unlimited track driving, and we're seeing a really good conversion rate. In the past, it's been almost 30% of these guys have been converting. Now we sold 40 of them this year at $4,200. That's $160,000 in revenue, and as long as they continue And, we'd like to get a pool of 100 or 150 of these guys. They don't, access the track as much as the full members do, but it's a way to get them in and try to get them up that ladder and hopefully get them in the racing, which then exposes their families to it, gets the kids in the karts, because as Jeremy has proven, the karting is awesome. We're investing over $2 million into our kart track right now. We just put in about it's 3/10 of a mile addition with a 12-foot elevation drop. It's not a black diamond like yours dropped, Jeremy, but it's pretty cool. And then it goes
Ours is 4.5 stories over 100 feet. It really is.
No, it's
a
cool.
kart track.
And then it's got a bank corner. So when it's all put together, it'll be over 7/10 of a mile. So it's going to be a big track. It's going to be lit. So we run at night, and we're going to open it up to the public, which is a big new thing for us. So we hope that's going to generate that ladder system that Jeremy talked about. And we've already sold, how many carts, Kyle? 60, 50 Mark Ignites? 65 in like 2 years. And we're storing 40 of them. So, it generates all the things Jeremy just mentioned. So.
And Jeremy, I once had a member of your track, when I asked him why racing, you started doing a little bit in the way of NASA events and doing some of the regional stuff with SCCA too. And I said, why racing? He said, because I was a frustrated golfer. I kept losing balls in the woods. I had no chance of making it to the PGA. Right. He says, but now as a racer, so far I haven't lost a car in the woods, and I can actually work my way up to race Pirelli World Challenge and some of the other racing circuits out there. How important is that to your membership to go from being the novice car guy who just wanted to have fun to all of a sudden realizing, hey, I could actually go out here and challenge some other racers?
Well, I think it's very important in the sense that we marketed to a demographic of people that owned cars that were not racers, had never been on a racetrack. Right now we have 548 members, 75% of which have never been on a racetrack until they came to AMP. So I think that ladder and that progression ladder is important. We stole one of Mark's ideas. He's taught me a tremendous amount of things. And one of those was the Miata series. And now we've added the Radical Racing series. And now we've become the only accredited Radical Racing school in the States. And so we now have that accreditation to be able to push people through and run them through the ladder to do the Pirelli World Challenge and really push them through that market. But again, I mean, we start them in the go-karts. And the amazing thing is a lot of these people will end up buying a go-kart membership, about 80%, and they store the go-karts with us for $75 a month, and we have them about 5 high. So, it's a 68 by 55 foot, or 68 inch by 55 inch space that we have somewhere around $375, something like that, or $425 per that space in vertical rent. And a lot of these people never show up to drive the car. So it's just another annuity stream, another way to stabilize the business, another way to really have something else for them to be able to do with the family. And some alternate things that may be important is we added a fitness center. We have a playroom for the kids. We have toys, ping pong table, things of that nature. And this winter, we're building a pool with the slide. I'm not going to, I'll say to this group, it's basically for my kids, but, yes, so I can get naps and that. But, what's interesting is the spouse will come with the other spouse and say, hey, look, you can hang out and you can be in the gym, you can hang out and be at the pool, you can hang out in the kids' playroom or whatever have you. And will it be utilized? I don't know, but I think it'll be very important to selling the memberships and really getting that net new market in, because we have to have net new people that are from outside of the industry, and we are shopping or taking customers from the golfing industry. That's where a majority of the people that we take, and so we have to have similar amenities and things that are high end, and that's what we're going for, is the Ritz-Carlton kind of St. Regis. Phil.
Brad, I don't think you'd argue with me that you've been even more successful than probably your most ambitious outlooks had forecast but how do you manage growth? Because in this sport, when you're going good, it's so easy to get out over your skis too far and end up costing yourself big time. How have you managed to manage the growth of your facility?
Well, it's through discipline, business discipline, and not getting lured into the excitement of entertainment. And when you look at this industry and look at the history of facilities, oftentimes built by very wealthy people as a hobby, turns over to the next second or third owner, goes through multiple bankruptcies. They're not disciplined business people. And I've already heard from these guys today that I'm going to be out of business because I don't have a go-kart track and I only have one track. So I worry about these things every day. It's true.
No, he's going nowhere. This guy's crushing.
You got to
$40 million in condos in 2 years.
65. But
Stack them higher. That's all. Keep going.
Sorry, it was 6 months ago when I got the number. Bragger.
No, but I think the key is, and I mean, this conference, and I just don't want to forget to say this to you and Tim, has been very valuable for me. I've gotten, what I think is the best insurance guy out of it. I got the best lawyer out of it. I've met amazing people. I've learned to have these, to have people with similar or even different facilities and learn from them. And everyone's really open, and that's the key. But I think what I've learned the most is looking at sort of the, and I get calls. We get calls every day about, do you want to buy this facility? The guy put in $100 million. It's for sale for $10 million. This industry, it's just like I worked in the entertainment industry, movie industry for a long time in Los Angeles. A ton of money gets wasted by people that aren't business people, and they hire people that aren't business people. And I spend more time looking at my P&L and my balance sheet and the real fundamentals of a business to operate it. And people look at me like, you're crazy. It's a racetrack. You're going to get this many people come in, and it's a very complex business. People get excited and say, "This is the most. You're so lucky. You get to do what you love. You're around cars all day." And I'm like, "This is a nightmare business for an operator because I have for sale real estate. I have an event business by itself was a massive business. I have a sponsorship business. I have soon to have a triple net leasing business of retail and commercial. I have risk. I have contracts. I have partnerships with auto companies. I mean, it's like 12 businesses in one. And it's fun because it is tied to my passion. But if you don't have your handle and have a good team around all the details, especially on core fundamental accounting and money management principles, you're going to be dead in the water, especially in a business where you can't get money.
There's no money out there.
Yeah, I mean, people will tell you there's financing there, and there are for large capital projects. Oftentimes on very poor terms. My project, if I wasn't in, I'm in Pontiac, Michigan, based on the success I've had to date, every bank comes to me and says, "Oh, we've heard you're so successful. You're making money. You have zero debt. Blah blah blah. We'll give you money." And then they see where my address, and they go, "Pontiac, Michigan. We don't lend in Pontiac, Michigan. That's the lowest. That's the lowest income area." And I say, "Yeah, but a block away is Bloomfield Hills, one of the top 5 wealthiest suburbs in the United States. Sorry, your zip code can't loan there because everything we've ever done there, we lose our butt on." So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it did actually very well. Mark, every time I show up at Autobahn for an event, I'm amazed because there's always something new there, it seems. Mm-hmm. How have you been able to so successfully manage your growth? Because as one of your members say, you're kind of growing nice and gradually, and it's never been an imposition on the membership from what I see. How do you manage that growth?
It's tough because as these guys can acknowledge, the thing will suck capital. I mean, you couldn't outspend how much money you could throw in it. It'd be impossible. So we've had to stay really focused. Just as Brad mentioned, when we first built the track, it's like, oh my God, this is awesome. Let's do pro racing. So we went out and got World Challenge and Atlantic and Star Mazda and Porsche Patron, and we did a pro race, and we took a year to promote it, and we made like $100,000 that weekend. We're like, wow, that was amazing. And it's like, no, it wasn't. We spent a year doing this, and we rented to Cadillac and make more than that in the weekend. So you've got to really focus on your core disciplines. We rent the track, we sell memberships, and we develop the real estate. That's what we do. And if it's not related to those things, you can't do it. We've been in our capital budget every year, which is we don't let operations money stays in operations, and capital improvement money is initiation fees. So we sell a bunch of members, we can do things. You can't use one to feed the other. So in our capital budget, we've been repaving over 3,000 feet of track every year. And Mike Ritter's done a great job. Mike and Kyle are there. And so we've repaved both tracks. We've got 3.5 miles. They're all repaved. All the paddocks are done. All the team unit roads. All the infrastructure's been done. We've used all our real estate profits to redirect back in the facility. We pay back all our 40 founding members have all been paid back. They're out now, so now it's just the stockholders, me, my partners, and a small other group that own the place. So, we've been real disciplined about keeping that money where it is, and it has to be progressive. So now that we've got both tracks repaved, the infrastructure to where it is, now we were able to turn our eye on the go-kart track, which is really exciting because now we've been able to do that investment into the kart track and now have a whole new source of revenue that we didn't have before, to help hopefully get us up to another notch. So you've got to be really focused and targeted, and you can't get too crazy with things.
All right, Jeremy. Can you add to that?
Yes, I can add to that. I adopt a completely opposite philosophy this last year. Shit. Sorry, folks. We built 5 new buildings this year alone, and it is crazy. We've grown too much, too fast, just being honest with everybody here. And it is, we're cash flowing, we're making money, the business is doing well. But are we doing it at the level that we normally do it at? Are we servicing the members the way that we want to service the members? Is my team, pulling their hair out and aging at a multiplier? Yes, all those things are happening. So our goal is over this slow season in December, end of December, January, February, is to recalibrate, refocus, redefine, clarify roles. Look at the issues and the challenges that we have. Go back through our disaster plan. Speaking of disaster plans, we actually did a disaster plan example where we pretended like there was a disaster and there was only 2 of us that actually knew that it was not a disaster, to try to see how the team reacted and what they did. That was quite interesting, to say the least. But they did pretty well. But so my goal this year in this cold season, we still operate during those months, is really redefinement of the business, the roles, the responsibilities, and clarity. Streamline.
Before I toss out the next question, I want to see if there are any questions from the audience, and I'll come running out to you here. How the heck, and I'm going to throw this as a toss-up question out here, the $100 toss-up question. Frustrated game show host, I'm telling you. Where is the next round of growth going to come from?
You want it?
I think we test and learn every day. We try crazy ideas. I try to do it with not a lot of capital, so I try and find partners and sponsors to fund events and try activities at those events and determine, are people willing to pay, or are large crowds coming, or are sponsors paying for this? I think, in our site, we're limited. We have 87 acres. I've had to fit in, I thought it was going to last me for 10 years. We're 3 years in and the whole site's almost taken up. I think the retail opportunity for me, because of my location, we're literally in the middle of the city. We're surrounded by a massive population. Very few facilities in the United States have that luxury. So our people drive 15 minutes to come to our events. So I think the commercial opportunity for speed shops, restaurants, entertainment type outlets is a huge opportunity, but it's a new challenge too, because again, I can't get funding still. And I got to do all new construction, and I got 1 million tenants that want to be there, but they're all new first-time franchisees, guys that work out of their garage. So I need national tenants, but I don't want, I've had AutoZone, like, we'll open an AutoZone on the corner, that's great. I'm like, I don't want AutoZone unless you want to do a concept store. And then they're like, well, we don't change our store formats for you. So you got to find the right tenants. So for me, I think the growth is going to come out of probably something I'm not even thinking of. I always, every year, I forgot who the book author was, but there's a thing about you should run your business as if someone's going to put you out of business next year. So I do that every year, constantly looking at how am I going to be put out of business by who. I mean, we're very fortunate that I don't see any competition because it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get the property I got. So I don't think anyone else will get another facility like that approved. But people's dollars are diverted towards other entertainment opportunities, and it's how do you bring the people to a site to do something. So it's probably something I'm not thinking of, but for me, it's probably the retail and then unique events is really draws the big population.
Yeah, we're going into the garage condo side of the business as well, and that's our next big push. We have members clamoring really to buy the garage condos. And then secondarily, we've got a lot of goat hill, for lack of a better phrase, big 2-to-1 slopes that we're going to put micro houses on, 750 square foot or smaller. These are going to be on stilts. They'll be about $100,000. The last part is hotel. We're looking at a boutique hotel and building one right on the side of the racetrack. We lose, we think, about $1.5 million in revenue a year from manufacturers, film, and TV because of the hotel. And we believe that there's enough hotel traffic there that we can support it even when the business is low and slow. So those are the next big areas that we're going after.
Yeah, it's interesting, the hotel. It's true. We do Audubon, too. We're in Joliet. I mean, that's not we're close to Chicago, but not that close. And but it's funny, the real estate, we've done great, too. But I don't think, if you don't have a good club, nobody's going to want to spend $2 million. We've got some garage halls now. They're $2-3 million. They're 12,000 square feet, 3 stories. But none of those people would spend any money on a garage or anything if they didn't like the club. So I think the focus has got to be on your customers, on the club, make their racing exciting, provide good food and beverage, a nice clubhouse, which we're redoing this winter too. But once again, stick to the core mission, make the club a great place, and then offer cool real estate opportunities, and I think that'll work. But if you just try to sell the real estate without having the club, and obviously, Brad, you're doing a good job in the club because people are buying that much real estate. So I think that's important to stick with that key thing because that's going to lead you to these other things. So,
And Mark, you have very nice clientele out there because the Bettenhausens took pity on me on a rainy day and fed me and made sure I had hot coffee. Right down here with a question.
Yeah, David Vaughn, Thunder Hill Raceway. I'm curious about the concept of country club. So if I'm a member and I pay you $100,000 up front, how does my life cycle as a member go? Do I last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years at $100,000? How do you account for it? Do you show it as income in year 1? Do you amortize it over some period of time? So how does it affect your bottom line P&L? And do members get in, get excited, get in, and get out?
yeah, that's in our case, it's $40,000 to join. And that's capital improvement money, so that's below the line. Operations dues go into operations money. So our club, the dues plus track rental, that covers all the operating expenses. So initiation fees, you shouldn't be using that to cover operations because that's not predictable, right? Even though, we do well and sell new members every year. But the life cycle is exactly what you said. Some guys get a Ferrari, they get excited, they join, they spend $40,000, they do it for 3 or 4 years, and their annual dues at our place is $52.50 a year. And then, if you don't engage them, or some people, they just leave. They've done it 5 years and they're gone, and that's it. In our case, we have a 20% equity, so we put them on a list to sell the membership, and then we alternate. The next guy that joins, we keep the whole 40. The next guy that joins, we take the first guy off the list. He gets his 20% equity back. So as I mentioned before, the key is to get somebody in the club, do the best job you can of keeping them excited, introducing them to other people that might have similar cars, and hopefully you can get them into racing. Because once they start competing, we've got them for maybe their lives. They'll build a building, they'll get their family involved, they'll invite their friends out to watch them race. So, that's the ultimate interaction is when they get into the club, the member racing, and the wheel-to-wheel.
So we am it over 5 years. We amortize that income over 5 years. Our memberships are anywhere from 47. We've had $200,000 memberships. We sold all those in a couple weeks. But as he said, you've got to get them into the racing. But the difference between our model and his is our monthly fees are substantially less. They're $150 a month. And then there's a $30 day use fee. And the philosophy there is that's similar to a cell phone bill. and it becomes almost invisible to this demographic. So our churn is almost non-existent. We have, I think, 10 people on our list to sell memberships, and that's about the most we've ever had. And again, I only contributed to that monthly being so low, that 150 being so low.
All right, this has been really good. It's very interesting watching the Motorsports Country Club panel here. I've been fortunate because I've worked with many of you on your facilities and stuff. And from an industry standpoint, we've had kind of gloom and doom or challenges that are out there and stuff. And then we hear your guys' story that's out there, and everybody looks and says, just you said, hey, this is fantastic. You guys are just rolling in it and stuff. But I thought it was actually very interesting that each of you have really done a self-assessment and says, I got to be careful because if I don't, the ball is going to go off. And the other part that I really noticed is, like all of us were surprised, is you guys are playing a really high-stakes game. In real estate, because you've got such improved product that's out there, the numbers are mind-boggling for any of us. And so what I akin that to is, we talk about, let's go to the spectator events and the cup events and stuff, and we say, hey, those guys are doing it, they're coming down. But if we really look at what you guys are doing, you're on the same level as them when we start looking at the dollar value that's in there. But you guys have not done it recklessly, because we've all seen, hey, you know what, I don't want to say crash and burn, but people take a turn off the track for that. So commendable to you guys for doing it. And one of the reasons I wanted these guys to be here is because we all want to be like them. They're at the pinnacle of what we really like to go through and do. But it's also, to point that here are guys that have, when Mark and a couple others, VIR, when they started, it was kind of a new concept. And Mark, you've been there, is it 15 years now? Which is really scary. I mean, it's pretty commendable that this has now become part of the economic landscape from a facility perspective and a business model for our industry that has been pretty good, and that's been a bright point. So I really wanted to make a key point about that. So thank you very much. The other part, too, we're running really late behind, but the whole point of it, and the panel we went to before with the future of racing is, there's been a lot of engagement and dialogue between everybody, and that's the whole point of the whole meeting while we're here. So anyways, thanks for everybody. We're going to get back. We're going to go to the secondary
We're going to
break.
do one final thought from the panelists, and we're going to wrap things up and head to break.
Take it there.
Mark, kick us off with a final thought.
We're optimistic. We're 15 years in, and once again, we're excited about hopefully the next 15 and growing. I think growing our karting business and getting this next generation, and what everyone was talking about before. I think e-racing and electronic is great, but the one thing you can't get is a G-force. The feeling of a G-force. Accelerating braking only happens in real life. So the more kids we can get in and get them addicted to G-forces, the better for our future.
Brad, final thought.
I would just say, the opportunity, continues to grow. Unfortunately, I see a trend now of 1 million people trying to get into this business, and I think we're going to have a lot of failed facilities, again, which may be an opportunity for some others. I think it's exciting. Bob Lutz visited me recently, and he then quoted in the Wall Street Journal after our meeting. He said, these motorsports country clubs are the dude ranch of the future. This would be the only place you can actually drive, enjoy a car in the future. And he said, I don't know if it's 5 years, 10 years, or 50 years, but these places that are well run are going to be here to stay, and it's going to be the place you can actually enjoy your vehicle. So, I'm happy to have an opportunity to create something that has some staying power, but it does come down to discipline of how you run it, because you can get lured into spending a lot of money very quickly and lose a lot of money.
What did we learn from our Motorsports Country Club panel? Number one, and you just mentioned it again, don't forget to use your business skills when it comes to managing your facility, whether you're a country club facility, a short track, or a racing series. Because when it comes to growth, it can turn around the other way real quick if you're not careful. And number two, at your track, and again, doesn't matter what kind of track, whether it's a country club or a short track, have a ladder system. And in the country club business, have that ladder system to work from visitor to member, and then from member to racer. And you'll keep those generations of owners going through your facility. And number 3, different pricing models are needed depending on your market and facility. 3 very successful facilities, 3 very different strategies, but they all tailored it to their market, and that's why they're successful. Let's give them a big round of applause.